Now what I want to do here, because my thread is still down at this end, I want to tie the actual wing case and the nose cover of the fly on the front side and just leaving it hanging out. So what I'll do is I will take and I will measure this up, and whatever this distance is from the eye to the, or from the two eyes that I have onto the eye of the hook, that's where I want to taper. I'll use that as a guide, and I'll put about 1.5 times the length of that. So I'll take it, and then what I'll do is I will take and cut it like so, and then I'll taper it back. And I'll do the same thing on this one here. And what this will do is it'll allow it to go in between the eyes without building too much again. So what I've done was I've kind of taken it and made it into like a bottleneck shape. And then I will take and tie it in right on top. I'll hold it right against the eye of the hook, and then I'll just take and wrap it around. And then that will hold it down in place. And as you can see, it's on the top side there now. And now what I'll do is I'll take it and right up to the eye of the hook. I'll bring the thread up to the eye, and now what I'll do is I'll bring it back to where I want to tie in the other shell back into the back side.
How come you don't trim the thin skin after you cover the abdomen, Paul?
Trim it, like what do you mean?
Well, like, so you brought the thin skin forward, you ribbed it,
Yeah.
and brought it up over the eyes, but
Yep.
all of that is going to get covered again.
All of this here?
Yeah.
Yes, I did. But I did it just because it helped build up the base, and you don't have to put as much dubbing material on there for the thorax.
Okay.
So it's, I tried it several different ways, and so far this is the way I prefer to do it. It seems to be the best so far.
Okay.
And this portion here was after experimenting, and I finally come up with this last night. I said there's got to be an easier way, because I found that when I tried to bring it over and then bring it back and then do all the tying back here, it just, like right at the eye, it just left everything too bulky.
Yeah.
And then all you saw was just a big thread bump. So I tried it this way, and I was happy with it. So what I'll do now is I will take and put the shell back in for, because I've already got a piece cut here. And I don't want to play with this much material out there, so all I do is I'll just cut what I need, about 2 inches or so. And again, when you're tying them in for ease, if you just take and cut a little bit of an angle for a taper, and it doesn't build up as much. And again, you can see the taper is it's just enough so that, and again, it's with the curve going down, I will tie it on and then let it roll to the top side. And again, if you find that it's not working for you, then what you can do is just physically hold it on the top and then wind it down and let it snag. Let it does.
Was that one a little wider than the first piece you used?
This one here is actually a little bit narrower. It's what I found was a lot of the recipe patterns I see they all call for a 1/4 inch thickness, but I find if I go 3/16, even down to 1/8 of an inch, it seems to be about the right amount. 1/4 is a bit too much, and that's about what the gape of the hook is, and that's why I won't use the 1/4. Okay. And so right now what I'll do is I'll double check this after I got it tied on, and I'll fold it over, and your shell back to the eyes should be about the same length as what you're from your tail to for your body material. So I have to go back a little bit more yet. So that's just a matter of just 1 or 2 wraps of thread. And then I'll just double check it again and again. Now that's probably just about the right amount. And I'll just leave it hanging over. Now for the legs, any kind of a stiff kind of a hackle. I mean, I've experimented with partridge, but out of this whole package of partridge, maybe a quarter of it might be useful for the legs, just because of the length and the coarseness of it. Like in here, this is one here. Because it's a size 8, these legs would be too short, so I wouldn't be able to use it. This one here, it could be questionable. It would still probably work. I could probably fudge it to make it work. And I'm going to try tonight just using some of this hackle here. I believe it's from a pheasant. And we'll go from there and just try it. And what I'll do is I want maybe about 6 or 7 fibers on each side. And I'm not going to sit and count them out, but I mean, I'll look at it and say, first of all, I'll just piece it out. And I'll fold it out similar to this right now. And when I'm looking at these fibers here, they're going to be too short, so I'm going to take and pull them up to where I want the longer fibers. So right now, these fibers here, they may be good enough, but what I'll do is I'll just kind of hold it on top. And then when I'm looking at it, when they splay out, they're going to be splaying out on the side. And I want the legs to come back, if I were to hold them straight back, so that they would come back about the same length as to where the biots begin. And that's going to be pretty close. So, and then at this point what I'll do, because I've experimented several times, I've tied it on this way here, and then I got to try to put the thread through all the fibers, and it was just too much of a hindrance. So now what I'll do is I take and I strip the feathers off before I even tie them on. And then I get a better look at how many fibers I'm going to have for the legs there. And even that is too much already, so I'm going to want to strip a bit more off. So as you can see, it's still too thick there. I want to take about half of those off yet, so I'll just take a couple more off. And again, it's all by looks and by experimenting. I mean, if you're one time you tie, you have 8 legs. Next time you tie, you have 6 legs. The other time you tie, you might have 10 legs. I don't think it's really going to make a difference.
You know, the choke pretty smart.
And then you have to fish a different stream. So what I'll do now is I'll flip it around. I've got the amount of what I want on there, and you can always trim them off afterwards. Now what I'll do is I'll hold it, and I want to tie it on so that the feather's going to sit like so, with the curve going up. So I can take and cut most of this off, but I'm going to leave it on just for make it ease. You just tie it, set it on top, and all you're going to do is just a couple of loose wraps to keep it from rolling on you, and then just snug it down a little bit. And right now I've got this so tight that when I go to fold it over, the legs are going to bind on themselves. So what I want to do is I want to just take and, hopefully I didn't pull it too tight, and just pull it a little bit, just so that there's about the same gap as what the thickness of your eye is between your thread and where your feathers start. Because when I start dubbing it up, and when I fold it over, you're going to have that thickness that's built in. So now you can go in and you can cut most of this feather fibers off of here. And then you can just go back and bind it back in. And my eyes are still turning a bit. So now I'm going to do the same thing I did for when I worked with the body material. I'm going to dub the material again on here. And that's why I made a bunch of it, because I know I have to dub another body up top now. And again, the same kind of, just very little. I mean, if you think it's too much, it probably is. So if you just go very little at a time, And even if you keep it back a bit because of the way I'm spinning it, if you keep it back away from the body of the fly, it keeps it from binding up on it. And then again, you can just keep dubbing it. And this one here you want a little bit buggy because you want the actual fibers, the fuzziness on the bottom side to come out. So we'll try that and see. Again, we'll just make another dubbing loop again. There's several different tools out there, several different ways you can do this. But just I happen to have this tool here and it's handy. I mean, you can use, you can even use your hackle pliers here and just hold it in the type of thread, and then as long as it's open, then you can twist it. Or you can take and, because I have an opening here in it, you can take and slide it up in real loose wraps and then snug it up, and then it kind of goes around. But this way here, I've already got it twisted around, and then I've got the other thread now going up and it's binding against this twist, and as I twisted it, it helps bind it all together again. And I twisted it not as much as the abdomen part, because I want the thorax a little bit fuzzier. And again, I'll use, and I'll just start making it come back. And I'll do this in a couple of stages here, where I will come up to the eye. Once I come up to the eye, then I'll come on this side of the eye, and I'll do a couple of wraps in front, and then I'll bring it back, and then around the eye on top, and then back, and then I'll build up the thorax a little bit more with it. And that's about where I want it to be. And I'll hold it up on top, and then what I'll do is I'll tie off on the back side here, just so it's on the top side here where I'm tying it off. And again, out of repetition. And I can't say why I do that, it's just I do it. And then just a couple more wraps on the front. And now what I'll do is I'll take the legs, now we'll bend the legs back. Now, you're probably saying, well, your feathers are going the wrong way. That's because I stroked them to go that way. They're naturally still going to go to the back side. So what I'll do is I'll hold this on the top side and just 2 loose wraps just over the top just to see how they're going to sit. And that's going to hold it, and then what I'll do is I'll have a look at it, and then you want the stem of the feather to be right on the top and in the center, kind of in between the eyes. And once you see that's where you want it, you can just snug up on it a little bit. Don't pull it too tight, because you have the spine on that feather is pretty brittle, it'll break. And then what you do is just take a couple more wraps just to kind of bind it down. And at this point here, I just take and cut right up to the thread. I leave a little bit of the stem there just so I can take and bind it down a little bit more. Now we'll take and fold this over. This is the shell of the fly now. And we'll hold it just on the top side between the eyes. And we'll just one wrap behind the eyes here. Get that there. And I'll do 2 wraps, let it sit, and then I'll have a look and see how it's sitting. And that's looking pretty good there. Again, it's a little bit too wide. I mean, with the eyes I've got, I mean, most of the eyes are the same width apart, but with the, it's just about the right distance. But what I'll do is I will take and wrap one in front of the eyes and one behind the eyes. And what that will do, and I'll just show you here, you can see the eyes are just kind of sticking out of the side of it. So what it did, it forced the top of that shell to lay down in between the eyes so that you can see that profile of the eyes. And I don't want all this material out the back here, so I will now get rid of this material right here at this point. And then I'll just kind of snug it down a little bit. And then I'll bring it back, leave the thread in behind the eye here again. And then I'll bring this over top. And that way it creates the nose of the fly. And then it also gives me a better tie-off point in behind the eyes, and you don't have to worry about it slipping off the eye of the hook. And you can see, well, once I get it all trimmed and whatnot, I'm not tying now at the front of the eye here, I'm actually tying behind it, and it's going to be a better knot finish at the end. So I won't worry about cutting this right yet, because what I want to do is I want to just tighten that down a little bit, and then I'll just give it a whip finish here, and we'll get rid of it. And I go about 3 whips on the top side, just give it a little tug, and then I'll do it once more. Okay, and then I'll go in and I'll just snip the thread here. Now, these are the tiniest little scissors that I've bought. I mean, they're just about too small for my fingers, but what I like about them, I got them in a sewing department, is the tips. They're so fine, I can get right in to where I want to cut and everything else, and they'll roll around as well, that I can go make different angles and whatnot. So what I want to do now is I want to cut this right at the back where I fold it, okay, right where I fold it, the shell over. I want to cut this so it's even with the back of that. So I'll measure it up, and if I'm out a little bit, it's not a big deal, but. So what I'll do is I'll just lay the blade on top, and then I'll just go across as straight as I think is straight. And as you can see, it's hard to see it, but it's just a kind of a little bit. And then what I'll do is I will take and I'll put a little V cut in here. And then I'll go straight across. And then I'll angle it and then go back again. And what that does is it makes a little kind of a wing case on the top side of this fly. Now, is it required? Probably wouldn't make a difference, but for me, it's required. And now what I'll do is I'll go in and I will trim all these loose hairs off of here. And once I get them trimmed, then I'll show you what I've got here. And do the last little step. Now, this is the underside of it here, as you can see. The wings, the legs are a little bit too long for my liking, and I've got too many on one side, as I can see. So you can just go in and snip a couple out. Again, that's what I like about these scissors, because they're nice and fine, then you can just rip them out. And then you can fold them back as you want, and if you find that's too many legs, you can go in and thin them out a bit. But this tool here was the idea was given several years ago. I don't know who it was here in the club that made it up, but I certainly adopt it and I love it. And all it is just a popsicle stick with Velcro attached to it, and it makes a fine little tool for picking out dubbing and whatnot, and creating the fuzziness back on the bottom side of the fly again. And as you can see, it helps make the buggy effect of the flies. And if you do it too much, again, you can just go in with your scissors and cut out the little pieces you don't need. And this is one of the reasons I like using the white thread, because now you can see the white on this fly, and it just, well, that looks terrible and whatnot. So, but I have colored markers that I use, and I use these a lot in my realistic patterns as well. And what I do is I do the underside first, and because the darker color has a tendency of bleeding against the thread, and bleeding into it. Once you get the darker color bled into it, then this doesn't do anything. But once you put the light color on there, the darker colors will not bleed as much. Why, I don't know, but I just, through trial and error, I found that that's what it works. And then here you can see, just with the color, it kind of helped blend it into the color of the dubbing that I used. And then with the, and this is a Prismacolor, got these at Michael's, and this is a cream colored. And again, this one here is a dark brown. And they have what they, a fine tip on one end, and a real broad tip on the other end. And for these flies here, I just used the fine tip. And then what I'll do is I'll just take and I'll touch with the darker color here. And then that will blend in with the colors on the thin skin. So now you can hardly see the thread marking now of it. And this can be done in multiples of different colors of thin skin. This happens to be the golden oak. There's, you can get your standard colors. You can get where they look brownish. You can get some of them that look grayish. Some are natural. And you can, I mean, I find that I like the durability of the thin skin just because it's stretchy. It's easier to shape, but I've seen people where they actually tied with the actual turkey quill and they used a glue on it to help bind the feathers together. And that works too, but it's a little tougher to use. But you can experiment with this here. Use different colors, different types of feathers for it, different colors of biots. If you want to change the different stonefly species, just different color. Size-wise, this is probably your average size. On the bow, I've seen them up to a size 4. So, I mean, I've seen some big, monstrous flies on the bow. I've seen size 6s as an average, but size 8, it's an easy pattern to tie and to start off with. And that's just about it. I mean, and you can color these legs if you want to, I mean, because with the partridge, that would be the color on the partridge. But going through half of this stuff and this, I mean, most of it you couldn't use, but that's it. So it's fairly easy. And one other thing, what I've done was I've, just to encourage you guys to actually try this, is I made up some sample bags, and you're more than welcome to come up and grab a bag. There's enough material in it to tie up 2 flies. The only thing that's not in there is the optional stuff, as in the color dubbing for the ball or the lead. That you can do yourself. So it's come up and help yourself. There's, I think there's 20 bags there, so you can just grab one and.
Anybody else want a 50-50?